July 20th, 2012, midnight. In Aurora, Colorado, hundreds of people settled into their seats at the Century 16 movie theater. The air was filled with excitement and anticipation for the premiere of The Dark Knight Rises. It was supposed to be a night of cinematic magic, a chance to escape into the world of a beloved superhero. But in a matter of moments, this ordinary night would transform into a scene of unimaginable horror, leaving a community and a nation in shock. What happened inside Theater 9 that night? And how did a place of entertainment become the site of a national tragedy? Let's go back to that summer night. The movie had just begun, and the audience was completely absorbed. About 20 minutes in, during a chaotic action sequence on screen, a figure appeared through an emergency exit door at the front of the theater. The person was dressed in tactical gear from head to toe, a gas mask, a ballistic helmet, and body armor looking almost like a character from the film itself. Some witnesses initially thought it was a promotional stunt, a part of the movie experience. But that illusion was shattered when the figure threw two canisters that released a thick, irritating smoke or gas into the crowded room. Confusion quickly turned to panic. Then, the sound of gunfire erupted, loud and relentless, mixing with the sounds from the movie's soundtrack. The darkness, the smoke, and the chaos made it nearly impossible for anyone to understand what was happening. People scrambled for cover, ducking behind seats, crawling on the floor, and desperately trying to find a way out. The emergency exit the shooter had entered through was now the only viable escape route for many, as he blocked the main entrance. The first 911 calls started flooding in at 12:38 a.m. Dispatchers were inundated with frantic, terrified voices describing the unfolding nightmare. The first police officers arrived on the scene in less than 2 minutes, an incredibly rapid response. They encountered a scene of absolute chaos both inside and outside the theater. People were fleeing, some with severe injuries, while others were trying to help the wounded. The officers' training kicked in as they moved towards the danger. Back at the theater complex, officers quickly located a suspect in the rear parking lot, standing by his car. He was still clad in his tactical gear but offered no resistance. When asked if there were any other shooters, he calmly stated that he was alone. The suspect was identified as James Holmes, a 24-year-old former neuroscience PhD student at the University of Colorado. His arrest was just the beginning of a long and complex investigation. What could possibly motivate someone to commit such a devastating act? As authorities took Holmes into custody, the full scale of the tragedy inside Theater 9 was becoming clear. The scene was heartbreaking. Paramedics and police officers worked tirelessly to treat and evacuate the wounded. The sheer number of victims overwhelmed the initial emergency response. Some officers had to use their own patrol cars to rush critically injured people to the hospital, knowing that every second counted. In total, 12 people lost their lives that night, and another 70 were injured, either by gunfire or in the stampede to escape. The victims ranged in age from a 6-year-old girl to a 51-year-old man. They were friends, couples, parents, and children, all there to enjoy a movie. The investigation into James Holmes began immediately. Who was this man, and why did he do it? Holmes had no prior criminal record and was described by some who knew him as quiet and academically brilliant, but also socially awkward. He had recently dropped out of his prestigious PhD program after failing the key oral exam. Investigators discovered that he had been meticulously planning the attack for months. He had legally purchased multiple firearms, thousands of rounds of ammunition, and all the tactical equipment he wore. A look into his life revealed a descent into severe mental health struggles. He had been seeing a university psychiatrist, and in the weeks leading up to the attack, his behavior had become increasingly erratic. He sent a notebook to his psychiatrist detailing his violent thoughts and plans, filled with drawings and writings about his homicidal ideations. Unfortunately, the package wasn't discovered until after the tragedy had already occurred. This raised difficult questions about mental health care, privacy laws, and the potential for intervention. Could this have been prevented? The investigation also led police to Holmes's apartment, which he had booby-trapped with a complex web of explosive devices. He had rigged his home with the intention of causing more harm, specifically targeting any first responders who might enter. It took bomb disposal experts days to carefully and safely disarm the entire apartment. This chilling discovery revealed a level of cold, calculated planning that was deeply disturbing. It showed that his intent was not just a spontaneous act of violence but a premeditated mission to cause mass casualties. The legal proceedings that followed were lengthy and emotionally draining for the victims' families and survivors. Holmes pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. His defense team argued that he was suffering from a severe psychotic disorder, like schizophrenia, and was not in control of his actions. The prosecution, however, painted a picture of a calculated, meticulous planner who knew exactly what he was doing and understood that it was wrong. They pointed to his elaborate preparations and his attempts to booby-trap his apartment as evidence of his sanity and criminal intent. The trial lasted for months. The jury heard testimony from over 250 witnesses, including survivors who recounted the horror of that night in vivid detail, and first responders who described the traumatic scene. They also heard from mental health experts from both the prosecution and the defense, who offered conflicting assessments of Holmes's mental state. It was a classic and difficult legal battle, forcing the jury and the public to grapple with complex questions about mental illness, free will, and legal responsibility. In August 2015, after nearly 3 years of legal battles, the jury reached a verdict. They rejected the insanity defense and found James Holmes guilty on all counts, including 24 counts of first-degree murder for each person he killed. 1 for acting with deliberation, and 1 for acting with extreme indifference to human life. The trial then moved to the sentencing phase. The prosecution sought the death penalty. For weeks, the courtroom was filled with emotional impact statements from the families of the victims. They shared stories about their loved ones, the lives they lived, and the immense void their loss had created. Ultimately, the jury could not unanimously agree on the death penalty. As a result, James Holmes was sentenced to 12 consecutive life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 3,318 years for the attempted murders and other charges. He will spend the rest of his life behind bars. The Aurora Theater shooting left an indelible scar on the community and the nation. It sparked renewed, intense debates about gun control, mental health care access, and public safety. The theater itself was closed for 6 months. After extensive renovations, it was reopened, but Theater 9 remained sealed. Eventually, the entire multiplex was renamed. For the survivors and the families of the victims, the healing process is lifelong. They carry the physical and emotional wounds of that night forever. But in the face of such darkness, the community of Aurora also showed incredible strength and resilience. Memorials were created, support groups were formed, and people came together to comfort one another. The tragedy brought forth stories of immense bravery, of people shielding loved ones, of strangers helping each other escape, and of first responders running toward danger without hesitation. It's a powerful reminder that even in our darkest moments, the capacity for human compassion and courage shines through. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please know that help is available. You can reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline or other mental health services. Talking to someone can make all the difference. Thank you for watching.